So now that we have all of the devices placed in Packet Tracer and we have the correct connections between the devices, it's time to configure the devices and hopefully get all our interfaces up. So I'm going to go to PC1 here, and I'm going to configure PC1, and I'm going to click on Desktop, and let's see here, IP configuration and static IP address, and I'm going to give him 192.168.1. And he's going to be the second host in the 32 network. So he'll be 34. Subnet mask will be 255.255.255.224. The gateway will be the first host in that network. So it's 33 is the first host, right? And that's it. So if I was to click on this again, you'd see there it is, it's taken. Okay, so PC1 has been configured. All right, gateway here you can see is 33. All right, and then I don't need to configure the switch. The switch is just going to act as a relay. It's not going to have any VLANs. It's not going to have an IP address. So the switch is just going to connect us from our computer to our router. So now it's time to click on the router. And on the router, I'm going to click on Configure. And let's see here. First thing I want to do is configure the Fast Ethernet 0 interface. So with the IP address, I click on Fast Ethernet 0, the first first interface. And I'm going to give 192.168.1.33. Subnet mask has to be 224. And when you're doing this, if you're using this little tool, this little like GUI tool for doing configuring, it'll show you here the equivalent commands in iOS in the Cisco firmware that you would be using the Cisco operating system, and so that's kind of helpful. That's kind of nice. All right, and then I'm going to turn, after I put in the IP address and the subnet mask, I'm going to turn the interface on here. So, and then you can see the Cisco iOS commands that would have done if you were doing this all by the command line. All right, and then on the serial interface, the first serial interface, I'm going to put in an IP address, and I'm going to refer back to my picture here to see what it was going to be. So 65 was going to be the interface here, so that's what I'm going to use here. Okay, so '65 with a subnet mask of 224, and I'm going to set the clock rate here to 56,000 kilobits, and or 56 kilobits, 56,000 bits per second, and then the port status, turn it on. And now my serial interface for the first router is set to 65, which is the first usable in the 64 network, 224 subnet mask, on with a clock rate set at 56,000. So that's good. Okay, and let's take a look at, and we'll see here that now we have green lights because we turned on the Ethernet interface on this router. So we've got green lights between the switch and the router. Now we got to configure this other router, and we'll start with the serial interface here and then do the Ethernet. So with this router, click here and configure, and the first serial interface is serial 2/0, and I will configure it right now. Let's see here, 192.168.1.66. No clock rate. I need subnet mask to be 224, and I need to turn the interface on. All right, that's good. And now the fast Ethernet interface on the other side, I'm going to turn the fast Ethernet will be 192.168.1. The 96 network, the first usable would be 97. There's the subnet mask 255.255.224, and turn the port on. So now that interface is up. Okay, so the router, notice we have green lights now on our serial connection. They can talk to each other because we've got a clock rate set on the DCE. We don't have a clock rate on the DTE serial interfaces. And we've got our Ethernet interface set up. And now all we have to do is configure the PC. So the PC, we'll do configure and interface fast Ethernet, and we can set it all from right here. 192.168.1.98 would be the second usable host in the network. In the 96 network, the first is 97, second usable is 98. And then we need a 224 here at the end. And we need to put a gateway here. IP address, port status on the Ethernet. Now where's our gateway? Well, we don't see it here. So let's go to settings, static gateway. Here we go, gateway. 192.168.1.97. That would be the gateway. And fast Ethernet set, 98, and that should be good. So now we have all of our devices configured, and we should be able to start a round of pinging to start trying to communicate and do an echo request from the PC to the router, and then see how far we can go before we cannot get a reply. And we'll talk about that in the next tutorial.